he's watching. Every text you send, every boundary you set, every moment you choose yourself over his convenience. You probably think he's just being difficult, distant, maybe even playing games. But here's what's really happening. High-value men don't just pursue women they want, they test them. Not with obvious challenges or mind games, but through subtle, almost invisible moments that reveal who you really are beneath the attraction. And the woman who passes these tests, she's not even trying to. She's simply being something most women have forgotten how to be, unmovable in her worth. You've seen it happen. A man seems intensely interested, then suddenly pulls back. He cancels plans last minute. He goes quiet for days. He watches how you handle success, stress, attention from others. And you think it's confusing, frustrating, maybe even disrespectful. But here's the truth no one tells you. Those aren't accidents, those are tests. And whether you realize it or not, your response to each one is either pulling him closer or pushing him away. Because men don't test women they see as temporary. They test the ones they're considering for forever. The brutal reality, most women fail these tests within the first few weeks. Not because they're not good enough, but because they respond from fear instead of certainty. They chase reassurance when he pulls back. They lose their composure when he doesn't text back. They abandon their plans to prove their interest. And in doing so, they unknowingly communicate exactly what he was testing for. That their worth is negotiable, that their peace can be disturbed, that their world revolves around his validation. The high-value woman, she responds completely differently, and that difference changes everything. So in this video, we're exposing the entire system. Not so you can play games or manipulate outcomes, but so you understand what's really happening beneath the surface. Because once you see these tests for what they are, you'll never waste your energy trying to prove yourself again. Stay tuned, because the women who understand this naturally attract commitment while everyone else is left wondering why he disappeared. Let's break down exactly how men secretly evaluate the woman they truly want. When a man meets a woman he's genuinely considering for something serious, his entire approach shifts. He's not just enjoying the moment anymore, he's evaluating. And this evaluation happens at a level most women never detect because it doesn't look like traditional courtship. It looks like withdrawal. It looks like inconsistency. It looks like he's testing your patience. And that's exactly what he's doing. At a psychological level, high-value men operate differently than men who are just casually dating. They've learned through experience that attraction fades, that beauty is common, that availability doesn't equal compatibility. So when they meet someone who genuinely captures their interest, they don't speed up, they slow down, they observe, they create space to see how you exist when he's not giving you constant attention. Because any woman can be charming when a man is pouring effort into her, but how does she respond when that effort momentarily stops? This is where the first invisible test begins, the attention withdrawal test. He goes from texting consistently to suddenly going quiet. Not forever, just long enough to see how you handle the shift. Most women panic. They double text. They ask if something's wrong. They try to re-engage him with questions or stories or subtle bids for attention. And in that panic, they reveal exactly what he was testing for: emotional dependency. The high-value woman, she doesn't panic because her emotional state isn't tied to his texting patterns. She continues living her life fully engaged in her own world. And when he resurfaces, she's warm but not relieved, present but not waiting. That response tells him everything he needs to know. Men don't pull back because they've lost interest. They pull back to see if you'll chase. Because the woman who chases when he withdraws will eventually become exhausting to be with. She'll need constant reassurance, constant validation, constant proof that he's still invested. But the woman who remains steady, who trusts the connection without needing to control it, she becomes magnetic. Her calm in his absence makes him want to return, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. Here's what most women don't understand. When a man tests your response to his withdrawal, he's not being cruel. He's protecting himself from future emotional chaos. He's determining whether you're grounded enough to weather the natural ebbs and flows of a relationship. Because life isn't constant attention. Life is stress, distance, distraction, and challenge. And if you fall apart when he simply doesn't text back for a day, how will you handle real adversity? The second test is even more subtle, the boundary test. He'll do something small that crosses a line. Maybe he cancels plans last minute. Maybe he makes a joke that feels slightly disrespectful. Maybe he assumes you'll rearrange your schedule to fit his. And here's what he's really doing. He's checking to see if you have standards, Or if you're so desperate for his approval that you'll accept anything to keep him around. Most women fail this test by accommodating. They laugh off the disrespect. They say it's okay when plans get cancelled even though they're disappointed. They bend and adjust and make excuses for his behavior because they're afraid that holding a boundary will push him away. But here's the paradox. The moment you abandon your boundaries to keep him, you lose him. Because what he's actually looking for is a woman who values herself enough to walk away from what doesn't serve her. The high-value woman responds to boundary violations calmly but firmly. She doesn't explode in anger or deliver ultimatums. She simply states her truth. That doesn't work for me. Or I had plans I'm not changing. Or I expect better than that. And then she moves on with her day. No lingering resentment, no passive aggression, just clear communication and self-respect. That response triggers something powerful in a man's mind. It tells him she's not just another woman willing to shrink herself to fit into his life. She's someone who knows her worth, and that worth makes him rise to meet it. Think about it. When everything is easy, when every boundary is flexible, when every disrespect is forgiven, what's being communicated? That she's not valuable enough to require effort, that she's not rare enough to protect, that she's not high value, she's just available. And men don't commit to available, they commit to valuable. The woman who holds her standards, even when it risks losing him, paradoxically becomes the one he can't afford to lose. Then comes the third test. And this one separates the women he's considering from the women he's already decided about. The jealousy test. He mentions another woman, casually, maybe an ex who texted him, maybe a coworker who's really cool. Maybe he doesn't respond right away because he's out with friends and, other women are present. And he watches. He watches to see if you'll spiral into insecurity, if you'll probe for details, if you'll try to stake your claim or compete for his attention. Most women react emotionally. They ask questions designed to seek reassurance. They make comments about the other woman. They become subtly possessive or noticeably insecure. And in that reaction, they reveal their fear that they're not enough, that he might choose someone else, that their position isn't secure. But the high-value woman, she doesn't react at all. Not because she's pretending not to care, but because she genuinely trusts her own value. She knows that if he's the right man, no other woman is a threat. And if he's not the right man, no amount of jealousy or competition will make him stay. Her lack of jealousy does something unexpected. It makes him see her as fundamentally different from every other woman he's encountered. Because most women, even confident ones, show cracks in their security when another woman enters the picture. But when she remains unchanged, calm, and secure, he realizes she's not operating from scarcity. She's operating from abundance. And abundance is intoxicating to a man looking for a long-term partner. Here's the deeper psychology. Men don't want to be with women who need them to avoid all other women to feel secure. That feels like a cage. They want to be with women who trust them, who trust themselves, and who know that real connection can't be threatened by external circumstances. When you pass the jealousy test, you communicate that you're emotionally mature enough for an adult relationship built on trust, not control. The fourth test is perhaps the most revealing. The success test. When something good happens in your life, when you achieve something, when you're celebrated or receive attention, he watches how you handle it. Do you shrink yourself to make him comfortable? Do you downplay your wins to avoid outshining him? Or do you own your success fully, without apology, without seeking his permission to be proud? Most women unconsciously dim their light around men they're interested in. They've been taught that men have fragile egos, that success might intimidate him, that being too much will push him away. So they minimize their achievements, redirect praise, or simply don't share their wins at all. And in doing so, they fail the test. Because a high-value man isn't threatened by a successful woman. He's attracted to her. He wants a partner who's building something, who's ambitious, who's respected in her own right. What he's testing for is whether you believe you deserve that success, or whether you'll shrink to fit into his comfort zone. The high-value woman owns her achievements. She shares her wins with genuine excitement. She doesn't need his validation, but she invites him to celebrate with her. And if he can't handle it, if he becomes competitive or dismissive or distant, she recognizes that as his limitation, not hers. That response tells him she's not going to make herself smaller for anyone. And paradoxically, that makes him want to rise higher himself, because men are inspired by women who set the standard, not women who lower it. Then there's the emotional exposure test. At some point, he'll share something vulnerable, a fear, a past wound, a moment of uncertainty. And he's watching to see what you do with it. Do you use it against him later? Do you see him as weaker? Do you try to fix him or manage his emotions? Or do you simply hold space for his humanity without judgment? Most women fail this test in one of two ways. Either they become his therapist, trying to solve his problems and manage his feelings, which shifts the dynamic from romantic to maternal, or they unconsciously lose respect for him, seeing his vulnerability as weakness rather than trust. Both responses tell him he's not safe to be fully human around you. But the high-value woman? She receives his vulnerability with quiet strength. She doesn't try to fix or analyze. She simply listens, accepts, and continues to see him fully, even in his unguarded moments. That response creates emotional safety. And emotional safety is what transforms attraction into deep commitment. When a man feels he can be vulnerable without losing your respect, without being judged, and without you trying to control or fix him, he bonds to you at a level that transcends physical attraction. You become the one person he can truly exhale around. And that's the woman he'll protect, pursue, and prioritize above all others. Here's what ties all these tests together. They're not about you performing correctly. They're about revealing who you are at your core. And the woman who passes isn't trying to pass. She's simply living from a place of such deep self-worth that her natural responses align perfectly with what creates lasting attraction. She doesn't chase when he withdraws because she's secure. She doesn't abandon boundaries because she values herself. She doesn't spiral into jealousy because she trusts her worth. She doesn't dim her light because she knows her. Success doesn't threaten real love. And she doesn't judge his vulnerability because she's emotionally mature enough to hold space for another human's complexity. Every test is actually an opportunity to demonstrate that you're not like the others, that you're not performing or pretending, that your worth isn't dependent on his validation. And when you consistently respond from that centered place, something shifts in how he sees you. You stop being an option and become the option. Not because you manipulated the outcome, but because you simply refuse to abandon yourself for anyone. Let's talk about the test most women don't even recognize, the time test. He takes his time before defining the relationship, before introducing you to important people, before making future plans. And most women interpret this as disinterest or fear of commitment. They start pushing for labels, seeking clarity, trying to accelerate the timeline because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But here's what he's actually doing. He's making sure, because men understand that commitment isn't just a feeling, it's a decision that impacts everything. And the wrong decision is costly, emotionally, and practically. When you push for commitment before he's ready, you fail the test. You communicate that your need for security outweighs his need for certainty. You're asking him to make a decision based on your timeline, not on genuine readiness. But the high-value woman trusts the process. She's not passive or waiting around desperately. She's actively living her life, evaluating him just as much as he's evaluating her. And that patience, that lack of pressure, gives him the space to choose her freely. And a choice made freely is a choice that lasts. Here's the truth about these tests that changes everything. They're not designed to trick you or eliminate you. They're designed to find you. The real you, beneath the performance and the fear and the desperate need to be chosen, because a high-value man knows that surface compatibility isn't enough. He needs to know that when life gets hard, when attraction fades momentarily, when challenges arise, you'll still be the same grounded, self-assured woman he met in the beginning. So many women ask, why does he make it so complicated? Why can't he just love me if he's interested? But it's not complicated, it's careful, because he's learned that temporary emotions create permanent consequences. He's learned that infatuation isn't love, that chemistry isn't compatibility, that someone can be perfect on paper and wrong in reality. These tests are his way of seeing past the performance to the person. And if you're performing, you'll eventually fail. But if you're authentic, you'll pass without even trying. Now, here's where most relationship advice gets it wrong. They tell you to recognize these tests and respond strategically. Play it cool when he withdraws. Act unbothered when he mentions other women. Pretend you're busy when he's not prioritizing you. But that's just another performance, and performances eventually crack under pressure. What you need isn't strategy, it's genuine self-worth. Because when your worth is real, your responses are authentic. You're not playing cool, you are cool. You're not acting unbothered, you are unbothered. You're not pretending to be busy. You are busy building a life that fulfills you with or without him. This is the emotional shift that transforms everything. The moment you stop trying to pass his tests and start living in alignment with your own values, you naturally pass every test without effort. Because the tests aren't looking for perfection, they're looking for authenticity. They're looking for a woman so secure in herself that external circumstances, including his behavior, don't shake her foundation. Think about the women you know who effortlessly attract high-quality men. They're not more beautiful or more successful or more available. They're more grounded. They have an unshakable sense of self that doesn't bend or break based on male attention. When a man tests them, they don't even register it as a test. They simply respond from their truth. And that truth is magnetic because it's rare. In a world of women trying to be chosen, the woman who's already chosen herself stands out instantly. Let me share what men confess when they're being completely honest. A man once told me about a woman he dated briefly. She was everything I thought I wanted, he said. Beautiful, sweet, always available. But the moment I pulled back even slightly, she fell apart. She needed constant reassurance. She couldn't handle uncertainty. I realized I'd spend the entire relationship managing her emotions instead of building with her. He walked away not because she wasn't enough, but because she couldn't pass the emotional resilience test. Another man shared the opposite experience. I tested her without even meaning to, he admitted. I cancelled plans last minute, and she just said, no problem, enjoy your night, and went out with her friends. I didn't text for 3 days, and when I finally reached out, she was warm but not desperate. Another woman tried to get my attention at a party, and she didn't even flinch. I realized she didn't need me. She wanted me, but she didn't need me. And that made all the difference. That woman didn't pass his tests because she was strategic. She passed because she was genuinely secure. Here's what these stories reveal. Men are looking for emotional stability in a partner, not robotic coldness or fake indifference, but genuine inner peace. A woman who can weather storms without losing herself. A woman who doesn't need him to be whole, but chooses to build with him anyway. That's the woman who passes every test. Not because she's trying to, but because she's simply being who she is. So how do you embody this energy? How do you become the woman who naturally passes these tests without game playing or performance? You start by reconnecting with your worth outside of romantic validation. You build a life so fulfilling that a man's attention is an addition, not the foundation. You establish standards and hold them, not to manipulate outcomes, but because you genuinely won't accept less than you deserve. You develop emotional resilience by trusting yourself through uncertainty instead of seeking constant external reassurance. The woman a high-value man commits to isn't the most agreeable or the most accommodating. She's the most grounded. She has boundaries that don't bend. She has a life that doesn't revolve around him. She has self-worth that doesn't require his validation. And when he tests her, whether consciously or unconsciously, her responses consistently communicate one message: I know who I am, and I'm not changing that for anyone. This doesn't mean being cold or distant or playing games. It means being authentically yourself, even when that risks losing him. It means choosing your peace over his approval. It means trusting that the right person will appreciate your boundaries, your success, your independence, and your emotional strength, not feel threatened by them. Because here's the final truth. A man who can't handle a high-value woman isn't a high-value man, and you don't pass tests to convince the wrong person to choose you. You pass tests by being yourself so fully that the right person recognizes immediately that you're exactly what he's been searching for. So here we are, full circle. You've learned what these tests really are, why men use them, and what separates the women who pass from the women who don't. But here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need to learn how to pass these tests. You need to become the woman who doesn't notice them because she's too busy building a life she loves. Today, right now, you can begin shifting your entire approach, not by memorizing responses or strategizing behavior, but by coming home to your worth. Every time you feel that urge to chase reassurance, when he pulls back, pause and ask yourself, what would a woman who knows her value do right now? Every time you want to bend your boundaries to keep him comfortable, ask, what am I abandoning in myself to hold on to someone else? The woman who keeps a high-value man's commitment isn't the one who tries to pass his tests. She's the one whose authentic self naturally aligns with everything he's been searching for. She doesn't fear his tests because she's not performing. She's simply being. And When you operate from that place of genuine self-worth, you stop attracting men who test to eliminate and start attracting men who test to confirm what they already suspect, that you're exactly who they've been waiting for. Start small. Begin by prioritizing your peace over his approval. When he goes quiet, don't spiral into anxiety. Engage fully in your own life. When he crosses a boundary, state it clearly.